You're watching the weekly messages of Village West Family Church. If you enjoy this, please consider joining our weekly gatherings. We meet Sunday mornings at 10:30. We'd love to have you so that you can belong, believe, and become at Village West Family Church.
You don't just give them the task. You don't look at them and say, hey, buddy, clean your room. And leave it at that. Because clean your room in their mind is a nebulous theory. Even at 9 years of age, they are brilliant philosophical minds. Clean, let's break this down. Clean is subjective to a 9-year-old. I guess you haven't never had one of those. Clean is a subjective term to a 9-year-old. Clean could be cleaner than my friend's room. It could be able to see the carpet and recall the real color. It could be not able to see the carpet, but hey, nothing is crunching, breaking, moving, or stinking. That's clean. Possibly. Room could mean the entire dimensional space, or in a 9-year-old's wonderful mind, it could mean the conglomeration of dimensional spaces that make up the whole. They walk in and it's like, well, this is not my room. I don't pay the mortgage, therefore I'm not responsible. But this thing that is in this space is mine, so I will take responsibility for it. I can't take responsibility for the whole space because the whole space really isn't mine. Dad tells me all the time, this house belongs to me and you don't like it, you can live somewhere else. So hey, when he said room, what he probably meant was only the things that I'm responsible for. That's why when a kid cleans the room, things go into closets and under beds. It's just dimensional to them. So you have to explain that out. Clean your room, again, would require ownership. Since they are not fiscally responsible, they only clean certain items. So you have to speak specifically sometimes. Clean your room, which includes the following task, done to this level of efficiency in this amount of allotted time. I mean, you got to get really specific sometimes, don't you? You don't have those kids. I guess I only do, or I only was. But you guys must be doing parenting really, really well. I applaud you. You got to get specific sometimes. To most people in a parent-child relationship, that illustration makes perfect sense. And some of you right now are thinking, yeah, when we get home, I got to take care of that. I've got to clean your room. Okay, I'll have to be a little more specific. But then I ran across a Jesus encounter, and I thought, man, why is Jesus being so specific? You ever run into that in your relationship with Jesus? You know the things that he says, and you think, yeah, I'm doing that. But then there are those moments that he's like, here, let me spell this out for you. And I think we get offended sometimes when Jesus does that. It's like, come on, Jesus, I'm an adult. I get it. I know what you mean. But I ran into this encounter, and Jesus is being very specific. Mark chapter 12, verse 28. Of all the commandments, someone asked him the question, of all the commandments, and by the way, there are more than just 10. Of all the commandments, which one is the most important? What is the greatest thing that I can do with my life? Jesus said, the most important one is this. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And immediately my 9-year-old mind kicked in. And I thought, why are you telling me all the details? I get it. And we do it. We actually do with this passage what we do with many areas of our life. We simplify it. I've done it as a pastor. I've done it as a preacher. We take this passage and what do we tell people? Love God, love people. Love God, love people. We simplify it. Just give me the basics. Just give me the task that I'm supposed to do. Love God. So I began to think there had to be a reason why Jesus thought it was needed that he expanded this thought. I mean, think about it for just a minute. How many of you, if I were to ask you, do you love Jesus? You would go, yeah, absolutely. Well, what does that look like on Thursday? Well, what does that look like? Do we start breaking it? Well, okay, love, kind of, and we begin to think about the details. And it dawned on me, and it's the same reason that moms all over the world don't just simply hand out the chore of clean your room. Because it's in our nature to make the idea of loving God fit to my formula. It's in my nature to take the idea of loving Jesus and make it fit my philosophy, make it fit my circumstance. And it stays more as a spiritual idea. Again, take that 9-year-old brain and tell it to clean its room, and 10 minutes later, it comes out and goes, I'm done. And you're like, I was gonna rent a bulldozer before you went in there. There is no way you're done. And you walk in and you can see, there was an attempt. That piece of trash moved from there to there. The blanket is partway up. And it becomes a spiritual idea. Oh, I love Jesus. I love Jesus. And it's a spiritual idea more than a practical working part of a love relationship with God. How does it work on Thursday? How does it work in the middle of the crisis? What does it look like when you're not sitting here? Last week we opened this series with love the Lord with all your heart. The heart level is the physical expression of love that is managed by our thoughts, will, and emotion. And man, if you missed last week, you're gonna learn one of these days. Don't miss. You're gonna learn. Because Pastor Bob brought us to a beautiful expression of submission, obedience, and worship. Practical expressions of how do I love God with my heart. And today we're gonna look at the soul. How do I love God with my soul? There's a lot of misconceptions about what the soul really is. Some say it's the complete essence of who you are. If you go out and Google soul, you're going to get a lot of interesting ideas. And right now, one of the big trends is soul care. That can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people because we really don't wrap our minds around this idea of soul. It becomes a spiritual idea. We talk about Jesus saved my. What does that mean? He likes me? I don't know. The idea of soul, we don't think about very much. Others, even the Bible, exchange the word soul for the word spirit or the word life. And all through Scripture, heart and soul are connected. They're connected. So how I think, how I feel, my intention, my will to love God is always connected to what we're going to talk about today, the soul side of how I love God. But the truth is this: you can intentionally, you can willfully, you can emotionally choose to love. That's the heart. But that choice is a choice that is involving a physical exercising and expression of your intent, your thought. You can cognitively engage in a decision to follow Jesus. You make a choice. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Yep, this is my choice. I'm going to. You can willfully submit and surrender your plan to God's plan. You have your will involved now. You can have an expression of love and relationship that flows through your emotions, the ones you can control and the ones you can't control. You can do all of that and still not love God with all your soul. Isaiah chapter 26, verse 9, out of the Message says, through the night. Oh, we don't like the dark, do we? That's when the bad things happen, right? Through the night, even in those places, Isaiah is saying, even in those places that I don't understand, that I can't see clearly, that things creep in, that I'm not aware of, in those places, my soul longs for you. Deep from within me, my spirit, watch this, reaches out to you. Soul is not just something that we keep inside of us and we take care of. Our soul actually needs to be reaching out. It needs to be active. When your decisions are on public display, everyone learns how to live right. It's interesting to me that is connected to my soul. When the decisions of God are in public, are well known, people choose right, he connects that to how I manage my soul. The connection and interaction of our soul is the spiritual side of our decision to love God. It's that spiritual side. It's on this level that we become aware of and that we operate in an internal mindset. I can choose to love God with my heart. You could come in this morning and you could choose to love God with your worship and walk out of here and it not have any eternal implication whatsoever. It was a choice. But the soul side of loving God is always connected to eternity. Not heaven, but an eternal mindset, meaning there is more at stake than the moment. There is more at stake than the need that I'm experiencing. There's more at stake than the method of how I'm loving in that current immediate moment. A lot of times we can love in the moment. We can love because there's express love because there's a need. But soul goes beyond that. When I love God with my soul, I am loving God not just because I think it's a good idea. I'm loving God not just because it makes me feel a certain way. I'm loving God not even because I'm choosing to. Loving God with your heart has to do with affection. Loving God with your soul has to do with devotion. God is asking for more than my thoughts, intentions, and emotions toward him. Again, here's that detail. See, I can come in, God could say, love God. And I could come into this room and I could find that one thing and I could say, I was nice to someone today. I love God. I sang the second song really well. I love God. I gave today. I love God. And again, that's like that 9-year-old that you tell, go clean your room, and they shove everything under the bed and go, I did it. I did it. Loving God with your heart deals with the affection piece. Loving God with your soul deals with devotion. God is looking for love expressed in faithfulness. Love that longs for is, David in Psalm 63 said, my soul longs for you. My soul is satisfied by you. My soul clings to you. That's not just an affection. I love Mexican food. Now the satisfied part, that'll preach. But I don't cling to it. I don't cling to it. It's not like I carry it around in my pockets all the time. I'm not longing for it. The opportunity comes, hey, let's go. Let's do lunch. I'm not devoted to it. Luke's gospel outlines what soul love really looks like. And it's in an interesting place as Jesus gives some definitions. Jesus sets some boundaries and he carves out the parameters of what it means to follow him. Let's go there. Luke chapter 9, verse 51. I want to read you this entire story real quick. As the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely, that word, you may look at that and go, that's not needed. It's not noun verb. It is important. Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. And he sent messengers on ahead who went into a Samaritan village to get things ready for him. But the people there did not welcome him. That is crazy. I mean, just think about what happened. Just think about what would happen if we knew that Jesus was coming to Kansas City and we promoted it. It'd be crazy, man. People become, and in our minds we're going, who would not welcome Jesus? Watch what happens. People did not welcome him, and he tells the reason why. Because he was headed to Jerusalem. We're going to tag that in just a minute. When the disciples, James and John, saw this, they asked, Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven and take these guys out? But Jesus turned and he rebuked them, and they went on to another village. As they were walking along the road, a man said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. Jesus replied, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. He said to another man, follow me. But the man replied, first, let me go and bury my father. Jesus said to him, let the dead bury their own dead. But you go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Still another said, I will follow you, Lord, but first, let me go back and say goodbye to my family. And Jesus replied, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. What does it look like to understand soul love? What is your sole purpose in understanding the love of God? Soul love, number one, is destiny driven. It says that Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. To be resolute means to be purposeful, to be determined, to be unwavering. Jesus in this moment is initiating his interaction with his destiny. Up to this point, Jesus has been teaching, preaching, healing, and operating as a minister in an earthly format. The word says that at the time that he was getting ready to go to heaven, he resolutely, he determined, he unwaveringly set out for Jerusalem. Now, this was not a trip. This was not a vacation. This was not merely a destination on a map. This was his destiny, because in Jerusalem, he would face the cross. So Jesus is making a decision that is unchangeable, that's unwavered, that is purposed to go to his destiny. Even though he knew his destiny was going to be a sacrifice. The greatest act of love ever recorded. And again, we're talking about how do we love. We're learning how to love right here. We love with our souls when we purposefully, when we unwaveringly and with determination fully engage in our destiny in Christ. You say, well, I don't know what my destiny is. I'd like to know what tomorrow's going to, I'd like to know if I'm even going to make it to work tomorrow, let alone what my destiny's going to be. Do you know that we all have the same destiny? We don't all have the same calling, but we all have the same destiny. That very purpose thing that all of us are created to do. And we need to have that purposed, determined, unwavering push to fully engage in the worship of God and gloriously serving Him. That's your destiny. That's my destiny. Every day that I live, my destiny is to worship God. Every day that I live, the ultimate purpose and goal of my life is to gloriously serve Him. That is my destiny. And it, like the cross sometimes, isn't easy to do. And if you'll notice, Jesus went into a place and there were people that said, we don't like your destiny. We don't like the fact that this is going to be your destiny. And they moved Him on. Even when people don't like your destiny, even when people don't understand that you have to do things, that your purpose is to praise God, is to worship God, is to glorify God, is to serve God, and they say you need to go, we got to be okay with that. That is soul type love. There are other things that we do with God and for God. I understand that. But that's not our destiny. Soul love is when you get to the point that you don't even have to think about your destiny. You don't even have to weigh it out. You don't even have to compare it to the other choices in your life. You say, man, I love Jesus. But this decision, I don't know what to do. Well, if you operate that decision so that it glorifies God and serves Him, then you are working in your destiny, and that's soul love. But we have this process that we go through. Well, let me think about this. Let me think about what should I do here? Is this going to glorify God or is it not? Well, you know, there is some good option over here. There is some good potential over here. It's the soul love that takes us to that place where we're not weighing it out. That may not be as hard as dying on the cross, but it definitely pushes the boundaries of my flesh. It's hard sometimes to be destiny driven. James and John didn't even get it. James and John had passion. I mean, wow. Jesus, let's just kill them. I mean, that's a passionate fire, and not even in a conventional way. God, we will call down fire. Those two, they'd never done that before in their life. And now all of a sudden, you know, here they are. They're one of the Avengers. We can have all kinds of passion. They had passion. They were ready for a demonstration of power that would definitely get people's attention. And what does Jesus do? We do the same thing. Jesus, show up. Do something big in my life so that everybody knows that you're God. And what does Jesus do? He takes us back and he goes, what's your destiny? What's your destiny? I've already done my destiny. What's your destiny? You want me to show up and you want me to perform in your life? Why don't you show them who I am? See, that's the difference. Oh, I love God and God's going to show up and God's going to do this, that, and the other thing. That's passion. When God many times takes us and turns it around and says, show them your destiny. Be resolute, be unwavering, be unswerving, be purposed in your worship, in your praise, in your service. Many times, we want to do the extraordinary to prove our love for God, and God just says, lock into your destiny. Soul loves through trust. The soul loves through trust. We can very easily in this passage interchange the phrase follow me or follow you with the phrase love you. So the first man approaches Jesus and he says, I'll follow you wherever. We can take that phrase and say, I'll love you no matter what. I'll love you no matter what. Oh man, we're really good at those statements, aren't we? We were really good. Jesus, we get into a worship moment and we're like, I will love you no matter what. Notice how Jesus responds. Jesus' response to him was, okay, let me move down a level. Let me check your love at soul level. Jesus wants to know, will you love me even if it has no definition? He says, man, listen, I can't tell you where I'm going. I can't tell you what it's going to look like. I can't tell you how you're going to get taken care of. I can't promise you anything. Will you still follow me? He does the same thing with the phrase, will you love me? What happens when loving God has no definition? Even if the outcome of my relationship with him remains a mystery. What about when it's tough? What about when it's miserable? What about when you feel unsheltered, insecure, unprotected? See, that's soul love. Affection can be expressed with words, but devotion can only be expressed through trust. I love you, Jesus. It's a very affectionate statement. I'm devoted to you, Jesus. You got to prove. I got to prove. And that's trust. And that's trust. Psalm 25:1 says, to you, O Lord, I lift up my soul. In you I trust. God, I'm giving you my soul. I'm expressing love through my soul. How does it happen? I trust. I was reminded from a line. I've been traveling a lot this week to district council and back, and had to go down to Wichita and teach a class. And so I've been in my car a lot. And I heard a song from the new Passion worship album. And in the song it says this, I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You know, it happens all the time. We articulate our love for God, but we still want to negotiate the outcomes. I love you, God. And if you will just, then I will. I'm going to I love you, God, but you know what? This thing is really kind of special to me. I've been doing it for a long time, so I'm just going to kind of keep it in my life, just kind of as a safety blanket. Okay? I'll give you everything else, but I stop all negotiations with the God of all creations. Do you realize that there's one thing that's important to negotiations, and that's leverage? Do you ever try to negotiate a deal with someone and you had no leverage? You're like, okay, you have to give me X amount, and they're like, you are who? When you have no leverage, you don't get to negotiate. Again, parents, you get this. The kid comes in and they're trying to negotiate, and you're like, I hold all the cards, dude. What are you doing? This is my world. I just let you live in it. We try to negotiate with the God of all creation, and we have no leverage. So we need to trust. We need to trust. There are times we don't even negotiate. We just leave him out of the decision-making process altogether. My soul loves through priorities. The next two individuals that show up in the story had other priorities. One is focused on the loss of life. The other is focused on the loss of relationship. The first man wants to bury his father, and the second one, he needs one last engagement with his support system from the past. On the surface, both of these are very viable reasons to say to Jesus, yes, I love you, but hang on a minute. I love you, but there's a couple of things that I still got to figure out. In both of these instances, their attention was on what they were losing more than on what they were gaining. Did you follow that? Man comes and says, I need to bury my father. I've lost my father. The other man says, I need to say goodbye to my family. I'm going to be losing. In both cases, they are focused on what they are losing instead of what they're gaining. I love with my soul when my priorities are set on God's outcome in my life. Neither of these reasons would have ever provided anything help in the future of these men. Neither of these reasons would be producing life any longer. Why is it, like the man preparing for the funeral, that we give more attention to the things that are taking life away from us than when Christ is getting ready to give us life abundantly? We focus on the things that remove life from us. And we're like, I need to take care of this. I need to give this attention. When Jesus is saying, in a few days, I'm going to be in Jerusalem and I'm going to give you life that is everlasting and eternal. But I'm losing. Loving God with your soul is all about your priorities. It's all about your priorities. Again, I'm not here to meddle in your decisions, but I want to remind you of something. We sacrifice for what we love. We sacrifice for what we love. Let me give you just kind of put this in a context. This probably doesn't apply to any of you because you're sitting here. 2% of all student athletes meet the standards of playing professional ball, but 100% of them will meet Jesus. It's about priorities. You're going, whew, at least he's not getting into my area. It's about priorities. Our priorities need to have an eternal outcome. Mark 8 says, what good is it for a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? His soul. And what can you give in exchange? Do you realize the value of the soul that God has placed within you and the ability that God says, love me with that? Don't just love me with an affection. Don't just love me with a thought. Don't just emotion. Don't just love me when it's easy. Love me with your soul. Set it as a priority in your life. And Jesus sums up the parameters of following him, of loving him. And he uses an agricultural analogy. He says, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service. Remember what your destiny is? Remember what your destiny is? To worship God and to serve him gloriously? No one puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit to do that. I'm ready for the team. It's interesting to me that he doesn't say that anyone who stops plowing isn't fit, because I think that's what we think. Well, I haven't stopped. I haven't quit. He doesn't say that you have to totally walk away completely. He says anyone who changes his visional direction. I love God. I love Jesus. I'm living my life. I'm plowing forward. I'm moving forward. He doesn't say that you have to just go, this isn't worth it anymore. He says if you change your visional direction, if you look in a place that you're not intended to look. One of our board members actually enlightened me a lot on this particular verse. If you've ever been driving down a highway out in rural Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and running alongside that highway, there's a cornfield. You're driving down and man, it's just row by row. It's like tick, 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 tick. And if you ever looked and thought, how in the world? Now again, I'm not a gardener at all. So to me, this is impressive. How in the world? I mean, acres of corn. How in the world did they get those lines straight? I'd be all over the place. Corn stalk here, one over here, there's 5 in a row. Woo, I'm doing good. How in the world did they get those in a straight line over and over and over and over so that they would produce the best that they could? How does that happen? Now, we cheat these days. Tractors have GPS on them, and you set the coordinates and it just goes straight. But back in these days, and even when my dad was growing up, you plowed by hand. And so when you're plowing that line, you would think, I did, that you would be looking right here, right in front of you, right in the moment, to keep it straight. But Tim let me in on a little secret. Our board member, Tim Schmidt, let me in on a little secret. He says, that's not the way you do it. He said, you pick a spot out on the horizon and you look right at that spot and you don't take your eyes off of it. And that's what keeps that path straight. Jesus says, if anyone puts his hand to the plow, if anyone is going to follow me faithfully, staying in that line, getting everything out of this relationship that they need, they can't take their eyes off that point. You can't even look into the moment. I believe we express a great love for God by doing the very same thing. It's less about the moment and more about the outcome. Loving God with your soul is less about the moment and more about the outcome. God, I'm gonna love you because I'm gonna trust you. Well, even when it's not defined, I'm gonna love you. Even when it doesn't make sense, I'm gonna love you. Stand with me. Do you believe today that God has a plan for your life? Do you believe that God's intention is to see a harvest in your life that is productive? Will you trust him? I mean, trust him. When it doesn't make sense, when it's not defined, when no one else is doing it, when you even have people who are saying, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Why would you love a God like that? Will you trust him? Will you make him the one and only point on the horizon of your life. See, it's not about the moment. See, I don't ever stop loving Jesus. I don't ever stop loving Mexican food either. But that doesn't mean that my soul longs for it. That doesn't mean that I am clinging to it, that I'm gonna resolute my life on Him, no matter what. And He will become the priority of every decision that I make. And I will trust Him with everything He's given to me. Loving God with your heart has to do with affection. But loving God has to do with devotion. As I wrap up, let me help you understand the other side of this real quick, because Bob pointed it out really well last week. Why do we love God at all? Why do we love God at all? The Bible makes it very clear. Because He loved us. Because He loved us. Well, I'm really not kind of ready to do this love God thing. Why not? The God who created the universe, the God of all creation, who created you, by the way, who made it possible for you to breathe and be here, loves you. Say, how do you know that, Ken? Deuteronomy 7 says, for you are a people holy to the Lord your God. God has chosen you out of all the peoples on the face of the earth to be His people, His treasured possession. Now I know He's talking about Israel here, but you can take these things and you can lay them over into our lives. Listen to this. The Lord did not set His affection on you, and He choose you because you were more numerous than all the other peoples. See, I think sometimes we think, well, God will love me more if I do more, if I be more. God will love me more if I get my life together. God will love me more if I become a humanitarian. God will love me. No, God didn't set His affection on you because of anything that you do or how big you can become. He didn't set His affection on you because of that. It was because He loved you. He set His affection on you. His mind, His thoughts are on you. His intention is for you and it's good. His emotion brings joy to His heart to look at you. Why? Because He loved you. And He promised that He would never stop. He brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you. The Lord your God is God, and watch this. He is faithful, keeping His covenant. So now we have affection and devotion. He kept His covenant of love to 1,000 generations of those who love Him and keep His commandments. I see pictures all the time. People post and it's like, oh, look, 4 generations of our family. And we're always like, wow, that is incredible. 1,000 generations. God's going to love you way past your existence. Oh, that should have been impressive. I don't know why that didn't. Wow. God is not asking us for anything that He does not give. He sets His affections and He is faithful with His devotion. We've all made the statement, I love God. Hopefully. But maybe we're like that 9-year-old who comes back after that occasional brief encounter and says, yeah, I did it. I cleaned my room. But all he did was make it fit his formula. See, I think sometimes we say, I love God because we're hoping. Maybe He'll love me back. My friend, he already does. He already does. Before you were here, and 1,000 generations past when you're gone. Sometimes we move things around. We give the impression that we're expressing love to God. We make sure that the dirty and the broken things are hidden away. We shove them in our closet. When what God is really saying is, are you resolute? Are you determined to practice your destiny, even if someone else doesn't like it? Do you trust me? And will you make me the priority of your life? Love the Lord your God with all your heart. But we got to love the Lord our God with all of our soul as well. Heads are bowed and eyes are closed. Maybe you're here today, and I need more house lights. You're here today, and you're questioning, do I love God? You know, Ken, just, I've said that, but, well, maybe you're questioning that because you had it backwards. You thought, if I love God enough, maybe he'll love me back. It's the other way around. God loves you more than you've ever known. Always has, always will. But the expression of love that he's looking for from you is not better behavior. It's not even church attendance. He wants you. He wants all of you. Are you here today and you say, Ken, I need to love God with all my heart. I need to love God with my will, my emotion, but I need to love God with my soul. I need to make a decision to live out my destiny. See, Jesus was going to Jerusalem to die for you, to give you life, to express love like no one else. The question is, will you be like those Samaritans and say, I don't want to receive this because it doesn't fit my life right now? It's the very reason that you're living right now. You say, I need to give my life to Jesus today. Would you just simply lift your hand? I need to give my life to Jesus Christ today. He loves me, I get that now. And all he wants is me. You're here today and you need to give your life to Jesus Christ. Then let me ask you, is he your priority today, church? This is not guilt. This is not to produce shame. We got to answer some of these questions. Jesus didn't just step into our lives and go, hey, love me, see ya. Let me know how that's going. I'll check in every Sunday. No, he gave us specifics. Love me in the way you think, feel, and intend. But will you love me and make me the priority of your life? You say, Ken, you know what? There's been a lot of things in my life right now, and maybe he hasn't been at the top. I need to change that today. I need to love God with my soul. I need to live in my destiny. If that's you, I'm going to ask you to step out from where you are and just come into this moment right here. Just come into this space, come into this moment. Because see, just like Jesus stepped resolutely towards his destiny, we've got to step out into these moments. It's okay. It's okay. You say, but Ken, it's scary. What are people going to think? Yeah, the Samaritans didn't think it was necessary either, but you still got to do it. Why? Because you trust him. Because you trust him. God, I'm going to make you my priority again. God, I'm going to make you the priority of my finances. God, I'm going to make you the priority of my marriage. God, I'm going to make you the priority of my parenting. God, I'm going to make you the priority on my job. God, I'm going to make you the priority in my free time. I'm not asking you to go be a monk and live in a monastery. I'm just saying, let's love God with a greater intensity. God, right now, would you just begin to allow the love of God to be felt in ways that maybe it hasn't been felt for a while. It's always been there, but God, we sometimes don't realize how important it is to let you love us. So God, right now, would you just, in this incredible presence of God, would you reveal yourself as who you are? God is love. God, we're not looking for a fix. We're not looking for a solution. God, we're just looking for you. And that your love would so captivate, would so encapsulate us, and it would draw our attention, not just our affection, but it would draw our attention, God, to a place where we are able to once again surrender, to make a resolution that we are going to live our lives to worship and serve. God, that we are going to trust, even when we don't see the boundaries, even when we don't see the outcome. And God, that you will be the priority of everything. God, we're done negotiating how things should work. We're done trying to leverage the situation to make it fit our form. God, I pray for these that just move forward, that you would take their eyes off of whatever it's been, and you would set their eyes on the horizon of hope. And God, as they move forward, as they plow forward to produce everything that you've designed to produce in their life, God, that they would realize that devotion to you will keep them straight, will keep them moving, will produce more than they can ask, think, or imagine. God, today, thank you for giving us the specifics and reminding us it's not just as simple to love you, but we need to love you with our heart. We need to love you with our soul. We need to show you the affection and the value that you deserve. We need to be devoted in everything that we say, are, and do. God, we, one more time, we give you praise because this is our destiny.